I wasn't looking for trouble that Tuesday evening. I was just looking for my phone charger when I spotted the wedding guest spreadsheet peeking out from under Emily's bridal magazines. Seeing a document labeled Final Guest List, I couldn't help but check it. This was our wedding after all, even if Emily had taken charge of most planning details. The spreadsheet was meticulously organized, 200 names color-coded by table assignments, and relationship to bridegroom. Emily had spent hours on this thing, even adding notes about dietary restrictions and gift expectations. I scanned through it, looking for Sarah's name. Table 1? Not there. Table 2? Nothing. I went through all 20 tables, twice. My sister's name was nowhere to be found. Sarah has been my rock since we lost our parents in that highway pileup when I was 19 and she was 15. I dropped everything, my college scholarship, my basketball dreams, all of it, to become her legal guardian. For 8 years, we've been inseparable. Me and my little sister with cerebral palsy, who has the sharpest wit and brightest smile of anyone I know. When Emily emerged from the bathroom wrapped in her fancy anthropology towel, I held up the spreadsheet. Hey, I noticed Sarah's not on. Here. Was that an oversight? Something flashed across Emily's face, annoyance maybe, or guilt, before she composed herself. She methodically applied her $90 night cream while explaining that she thought we'd agreed this would be a sophisticated affair. I reminded her that Sarah was 23 and my sister. Emily sighed, not meeting my eyes as she explained that my sister was different. We were having this event at Lakeside Country Club. The Watermans would be there, the Burkes too. People would be dressed impeccably. The photos would be in Connecticut. Bride. Then she said the words I'll never forget. Sarah's wheelchair would stand out. Her movements might disturb the ceremony. Having someone with her condition just didn't fit the aesthetic they were going for. She'd be noticeable in all the photos. The room seemed to tilt. My ears started ringing as Emily continued, her voice dropping to that tone people use when they think they're being reasonable about something horrible. She reminded me we'd spent over $75,000 on this wedding, with her parents putting down a $30,000 non-refundable deposit at Lakeside. We couldn't have anything mess it up. Without a word, I grabbed my keys and wallet. Looking back, I think I was afraid of what I might say if I opened my mouth. I drove aimlessly around Hartford for hours, eventually parking near the river where I used to take Sarah to feed ducks when she was younger. Since that night, I'd started recording our conversations about the wedding. Not proud of it, but after seeing Sarah's name deliberately excluded, I needed evidence I wasn't imagining things. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. 7 days before what would have been our wedding day, I officially canceled everything. Emily's parents were devastated, not just emotionally but financially. They demanded their $30,000 deposit back. I refused. Instead, I used that money to buy Sarah a specially adapted Toyota with hand controls and a ramp system, giving her the independence she'd always dreamed of. When Emily's family threatened legal action, I simply forwarded them the audio recording of their daughter saying my sister would ruin the wedding aesthetic. They withdrew their threat within hours. Updated. The support from you all has been overwhelming. I didn't expect so many people to understand my position. Emily's parents have gone completely silent after hearing the recordings. Should I have just returned their money instead of buying Sarah's van? I'm conflicted about that part. Emily and I met 3 years ago at a charity gala benefiting children's cancer research. I was there representing my software company's donation. She was working the room in a stunning red dress, introducing herself as the event coordinator. When our eyes met across the silent auction tables, I felt that movie moment connection. At least, I thought I did. Our relationship progressed with impressive efficiency. 6 months in, she moved into my downtown condo. By our first anniversary, I proposed with a 3-carat diamond that cost more than my first car. Emily slipped into my life like she'd been custom designed to fit. She impressed my business partners, knew exactly which wine to order at client dinners, and seemingly enjoyed the lifestyle my success provided. The warning signs were there from the beginning. I just refused to see them. The first time I introduced Emily to Sarah, she maintained perfect politeness while keeping a careful distance. She'd squeeze my hands slightly too hard whenever Sarah's dysarthric speech required patience to understand. She must be getting tired, Emily would say after exactly 45 minutes, though Sarah was clearly enjoying our company. After these visits, Emily would make comments that now seem obviously problematic. "She's so brave," she'd say, with that head tilt people use when they're performing compassion, or worse. "It must be such a burden for you." Sarah was never a burden. She was the person who kept me going after our parents died, whose determination inspired me to build my company. When we started wedding planning, Emily focused obsessively on appearances. The venue had to be prestigious, her word. The guest list needed to include her sorority sisters, colleagues from her PR firm, and her parents' country club connections. Whenever I mentioned my small circle, mostly friends who'd stuck with me through the tough years, she'd smile tightly and say, "We'll see what the budget allows." That budget was another red flag. Though I paid for most of our life together, Emily's parents insisted on making a significant contribution to the wedding. Her father, a hedge fund manager with a perpetual golf tan, wrote the $30,000 check for Lakeside Country Club without blinking. I later discovered they'd researched venues and made initial inquiries before Emily and I had even properly discussed locations. Sarah was genuinely excited about our engagement. Despite her limited fine motor control, she created a beautiful handmade card that must have taken hours to complete. Emily placed it in a desk drawer rather than displaying it with the other engagement gifts. When I pointed out how hard Sarah had worked on it, Emily dismissed it as sweet but not matching our decor aesthetic. That word again. Aesthetic. As if life were an Instagram feed that needed consistent filtering. Our wedding planning consumed everything. Emily hired Carolyn, a wedding planner who charged $200 per hour, and spoke about table settings with religious reverence. Together they selected $400 place settings, letterpress invitations, and centerpieces flown in from some exotic location I can't even remember. I nodded along and wrote checks, telling myself it made Emily happy. What I didn't understand then was the difference between happiness and obsession with perfection. When Emily looked at wedding venues, she wasn't imagining our life together. She was imagining photos that would impress her social circle. When she selected the guest list, she wasn't thinking about meaningful relationships. She was casting extras for her performance of successful upper-class bride. The woman I fell in love with was a carefully constructed facade. The real Emily was someone who could look me in the eye and tell me my sister with cerebral palsy would ruin her wedding photos. Someone who could dismiss the most important person in my life as an aesthetic inconvenience. After discovering Sarah wasn't invited, I spent 3 days in a haze of disbelief. I went through the motions at work, answering emails about server migrations and client renewals while my personal life imploded. Every notification from Emily about flower arrangements or menu selections made my stomach churn. On the 4th day, I decided to try one more time. Maybe I hadn't explained properly how important Sarah was to me. Maybe there was still room for Emily to understand. I picked up takeout from Emily's favorite Thai place and headed home early. I set the table with actual plates instead of eating. From containers like we usually did, poured her favorite Pinot Grigio, and waited. When she walked in, her expression shifted from surprise to cautious optimism, wondering if this was my way of apologizing. We ate in uncomfortable silence before I finally found my words. I tried to explain that Sarah wasn't just my sister. When our parents died, she became my responsibility, but she was also my best friend. She had faced more challenges in 23 years than most people face in a lifetime, and she'd done it with incredible grace. Emily's response left me cold. She understood I cared about Sarah, but I needed to see things from her perspective. Her father had invited the Watermans, practically Connecticut royalty. The Burkes would be there too, potential huge clients for my company. This wedding, according to Emily, was as much a networking opportunity as a celebration. The phrase networking opportunity hit me like a physical blow. When I questioned this characterization of our wedding, Emily's tone turned condescending. She explained as if to a child that events like this were about connections. Having Sarah there would change the entire atmosphere. People wouldn't know how to act around her. They'd feel uncomfortable. When I suggested that she was prioritizing the comfort of strangers over the most important person in my life, Emily offered what she considered a compromise. Sarah could come to the rehearsal dinner, which would be smaller and more intimate. But the wedding itself needed to be pristine. That word, pristine, was the final straw. as if my sister was some kind of contamination. I shared that Sarah had been practicing with her speech therapist for months, hoping to give a short toast at the wedding. Emily's horrified reaction, insisting no one would understand Sarah and it would be awkward for everyone, confirmed everything I needed to know. I packed an overnight bag and went straight to Sarah's accessible apartment. I'd helped her secure it when she started community college, making sure it had the modifications she needed to live independently. When I explained what happened, Sarah wasn't surprised. She noted quietly that Emily had never really looked at her. She looked around her, through her, but never at her. I spent the night on Sarah's pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called our wedding planner first. She was shocked when I told her the wedding was off, clearly unable to believe what she was hearing. The next week was a blur of vendor cancellations, apologetic emails to guests, and one excruciating confrontation with Emily and her parents in their Greenwich mansion. Her father's face turned alarming shades of red when I informed him the $30,000 venue deposit was non-refundable and in my name. He sputtered that it was their money. I simply stated that the contract clearly specified no refunds within 60 days. Emily was crying, mascara tracking down her cheeks, asking how I could do this to her, over her. She insisted Sarah wouldn't have even known she wasn't invited. I shot me a statement so casually cruel it confirmed I was making the right choice. When her father threatened legal action, I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Emily saying Sarah would ruin the aesthetic and stand out in all the photos. I'd started recording our conversations after discovering the guest list. Not my proudest moment, but necessary. The color drained from their faces. They understood immediately how those words would sound to others, to a judge, to their social circle, to those important connections they cared so much about. I informed them I'd have Emily's things packed by the next day. Someone could collect them, but I didn't want to see her again. As I was leaving, Emily's mother called after me, concerned about everyone who'd already bought plane tickets and sent gifts. I simply turned back one last time and noted that they just have to understand. Some things don't fit the aesthetic they were going for. Updated. Many have asked if recording was legal in my state. Yes, one-party consent is allowed here. Emily's now telling mutual friends I had a mental breakdown from wedding pressure. Her father has apparently told business associates I was fiscally irresponsible. Would you have exposed the recordings publicly? The fallout was immediate and messy. My phone exploded with messages, confused guests, angry friends of Emily's, and a surprising number of supportive notes from people who'd heard whispers about why I'd called everything off. Emily launched a calculated campaign to salvage her reputation. According to her carefully crafted narrative, I'd suffered a nervous breakdown due to unresolved grief from my parents' death. She told anyone who would listen that I was unstable and that she was only trying to help by giving me space. During the wedding planning, the truth spread anyway, like water finding cracks in a dam. One of Emily's bridesmaids, Tara, had a brother with Down syndrome. When she heard the real reason for the cancellation through another bridesmaid who'd heard the recording, she publicly cut ties with Emily on Instagram. I cannot stand with someone who views disability as an inconvenience to be hidden away, she wrote. Others followed. The carefully constructed social image Emily had built began to crumble. Meanwhile, I struggled with what to do about the $30,000. The contract had been in my name as the primary contact for our couple, standard procedure according to the venue. Legally, I could keep it, but that money felt tainted. I couldn't return it without tacitly agreeing that Sarah's exclusion was acceptable. I couldn't donate it without feeling like I was using their money to boost my own moral standing. Then I remembered how Sarah's decade-old adapted van had been giving her trouble. The hand controls were becoming unreliable, limiting her independence, something she valued above almost everything else. I visited a specialized dealership and put down a deposit on a new Toyota with comprehensive modifications, hand controls, a wheelchair ramp system, and technology that would allow Sarah unprecedented freedom. When I showed her the brochure, she stared at me in disbelief, whispering that it was too much. I explained it wasn't from me. She should consider it karma, the universe correcting an injustice. 3 weeks after what would have been my wedding day, I received a certified letter from a law firm representing Emily's parents. Despite their earlier retreat, they were now demanding the $30,000 be returned. claiming I had fraudulently misrepresented my intentions when accepting their contribution. I forwarded the letter to my attorney without comment. The next day, my lawyer sent them a simple response: a copy of the voice recording, photographs of Sarah's new van with its accessibility features, and printouts of Connecticut's laws regarding discrimination based on disability, with relevant sections highlighted. We never heard from them again. When Sarah's new van was delivered, I watched her navigate the controls with growing confidence. She drove us to her favorite ice cream shop, parking perfectly in the accessible space with her new permit proudly displayed. As we sat with our cones, she confessed she had never liked Emily. When I asked why she hadn't told me, she explained that I had seemed happy, and she thought maybe Emily would learn, grow, become better. People can surprise you. Some friends thought I'd be devastated after canceling a wedding 3 years in the making. The truth was, I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd been unconsciously dimming parts of myself to fit Emily's vision. I'd been making small compromises that, accumulated over time, would have amounted to a complete surrender of my values. The hardest part wasn't losing Emily. It was confronting how much of myself I'd already lost while with her. 6 months later, Sarah hosted a small gathering at her apartment, a celebration of her recent promotion at the graphic design firm where she worked remotely. I watched as she confidently moved around the space in her wheelchair, serving drinks and telling jokes that had everyone laughing. My friend Michael was there, deep in conversation with Sarah about her latest design project. They'd met at her birthday party a month earlier and had been texting regularly since. The way they looked at each other made me smile. My phone buzzed with a text. I was surprised to see Emily's name, the first contact in months. I heard from Julie that you're seeing someone new. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we could talk? Julie, a former colleague we both knew, must have mentioned seeing me at a coffee shop with someone. The rumor mill never stops. I deleted the message without responding. There was nothing left to say. Looking around at this gathering of people who truly saw Sarah for the remarkable person she is, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The wedding that never happened had actually given me exactly what I'd been searching for: clarity, authenticity, and a deeper appreciation for what really matters. Sarah caught my eye across the room and smiled her crooked, beautiful smile. "All good?" she mouthed silently. I nodded. For the first time in a long time, I really was. Updated. A year has passed since this all happened. Sarah's thriving with her new van and is now officially dating Michael. Yes, from the party. Emily moved to NYC after her PR firm restructured. The $30,000 question still divides people. Would you have used that money for Sarah's van or returned it despite what they did?